Belcha. 1,000 welcomes to Crann Beatha Short Stories and Poetry for May 24th. I'm Terrance Ó Domhnaill, your village scéalaí, with more stories and poems from online writers. I have 3 stories and 2 poems this week. The first is Chapter 17 of the ongoing story From Beyond the Water Wall, 2 science fiction short stories, and 2 poems about life. So gather around once more and let me read them to you under the shade of the crann beatha, the tree of life. Now, my first story, I will warn everybody, is rated PG. I'm going to kind of scale it back a couple of words here that would actually take it above that. So just to give you a fair warning, if you got any real small children that you might be doing bedtime stories with, this is probably not one of them. It's got a little violence in it, and some other things. So, like I said, PG rating for From Beyond the Water Wall, Chapter 17, The Mansion, by Dawn Woodby. Previously, Mars, Wren, Trench, Spike, and Abby made the preparations for the raid in Bogus Mansion. At 9:30 p.m., they gathered in the yard, all fully dressed in black. Trench carried a black shotgun on his shoulders. Spike held a rifle and a small revolver lay in his holster. Wren had the flamethrower. Mars carried the bag with the explosives. Abby had a small pistol, and they decided that she would wait in the car so they could get out faster after the job was done. They drove in silence. The whole plan was already defined in the last few days. "So this is the mansion?" Mars said as they approached their destination. "What do you think?" Spike said sarcastically. They were not on the main street yet, but the robust buildings showed from far away. 4 stone turrets stood at each corner of the high walls. The mansion was exuberant. The Gothic style contrasted with the urban character of the city that surrounded it. 2 soldiers guarded the gates, and Mars wondered how many were inside. The map showed only an overview. The details would be revealed once they were there. Trench parked the car on the block behind, and Abby jumped into the driver's seat. He opened the trunk, revealing another shotgun inside. "If you need to, shoot without even thinking," he said, giving her the weapon. She nodded and put the shotgun in a standing position, resting on her left leg. "Remember," Trench said, pointing to a dark device similar to a radio that lay on the front seat, "when you get the beep here, you drive to the back of the mansion." He then pointed at another one. "And if it is on this one, you go to the front." She nodded. With Abby on the wheels, they drove to the right side of the mansion. From what Spike observed before and from what they could see on the map, they knew the sides were the least guarded spots. "I'm going to place them. You guys wait," Mars said as he grabbed the bag of explosives. He spread them carefully on the floor along the fence, always looking around, searching for any movement on the street. His heart jumped every time he thought he heard a noise. If they were found now, the plan would be over before even starting. He raced to the car after emptying the bag and sat on the back seat beside Wren. "First step is done," he exhaled deeply. Abby drove to the other side, going around through the street in the back to avoid passing the back door. She parked, and Mars grabbed a telescoping ladder from the trunk, opened it, and leaned it on the wall. Abby held it with both her hands. Mars climbed up first, slowly. When he reached the highest point, he carefully peeked inside. Empty. He signaled to the others to come up. Abby took the ladder down after they had all climbed. She quickly tossed it in the trunk and drove away. Silently, one by one, they jumped inside. A broad garden with colorful flowers covered most of the courtyard. A fountain lay in the middle, and colorful fishes swam inside. They tiptoed in utter silence until they reached the first door on the path they had traced. The game room was the first chamber. If the map was correct, the lock would be fairly simple to pick, at least according to Spike. "Yeah, I got this," Spike whispered as he got on his knee and stuck something into the lock. A few moments later, though more than what he implied, the door was open. Wren squeezed Mars' hand as they walked through it. Inside, a pool table was set in the middle. 3 different arcades stood on one side, and a ping-pong table on the other. On the back, there was a counter and a shelf filled with liquor. Before reaching the end of the room, they heard some muffled voices from across the door. They rushed and hid behind the counter. A shiver ran down Mars' spine as the neon lights lit the room. "Snooker or ping-pong?" a male voice said. "Ping-pong today," a woman answered. "50 a point? Sounds good. I got to get my money back somehow." He chuckled. "You wish." The four sat on the ground, immobile. Mars checked to make sure the switch on his arm was set to 1. Wren's heart raced as she lightly placed her finger on her flamethrower's trigger. Trench picked up a radio from his pocket. If they got found, Abby would get a signal to blow everything up and create a distraction. Perhaps there would still be time to flee. "Do you want a beer?" The words ran through their spine like a cold knife. They held their breaths as the steps slowly approached them. They could see a shadow moving on their side and reaching for the minibar beside them. "You're lucky," the man said. "We still have 2 cold ones." He lingered in front of the fridge. Each second felt like an hour. For a long time they waited as the 2 guards played and drank until they finally left the room. The 4 invaders crawled out of the bar and crept through the door. A long hallway led to an area with a Alfuro tub in the middle. It was the next room on the plan. It was safe to assume, as safe as anything in the suicide mission, that no one would be using the tub at that time. "Soon we will be in the inner guard," Mars whispered. "We have to move fast there." Spike opened the door on the right side of the room to reveal a small but well-kept garden, a smaller version of the one in the courtyard. They had circled most of the outside part of the building, avoiding all the alarms. They glided through the garden and stopped before another door. It should lead to the auditorium where Bogus used to hold interviews and press conferences. The mansion was designed in a way that the auditorium and the party room weren't far from his room. Another reason for the placement is that it made it easier to sneak the women into his bedroom. He never married and never had kids. Some rumors would say that he was infertile, and that's why he was chosen to the position. Without kids, he would be more easily replaceable. But those were only rumors. The only light in the conference room came from their weak lanterns. They tiptoed along the stage and past the audience chairs to get to the back door that would hopefully lead them to the party room, the last one with an avoidable alarm. "Abby is probably wondering why we still haven't given her the signal to detonate," Wren whispered. They were far behind schedule. "As long as she didn't take off, it's fine," Spike murmured. "Of course she didn't," the fisherman hissed. They entered the party room. A bar, similar to the one in the game room, but larger, stood on the corner. Many tables were spread around the area. One more door, and they would find themselves inside Bogus' private living room. If opened, the alarm would go off. There was nothing they could do to prevent it. Spike stood in front of the next door with the stick in the locker. "I'm ready," he whispered. "Tell Abby to detonate." "Okay, let me just get the," Trent started saying, but was interrupted by a silent shout from Spike. "Wait!" "What's wrong?" the fisherman asked. "This lock is different." "Can you open it?" Mars asked flatly. "Wait," Spike said. "Maybe." After some seconds, he stood up and said, "I don't think I can open this one fast enough." Mars looked at the fisherman. "Tell Abby." "But just do it." "Done," Trent said. Nothing happened. No sound. "I knew it," Spike hissed. "We have to abort," Spike said. "Wait," Wren said, showing her palms. "Just a moment." So when Spike began to turn around, a massive explosion echoed. Abby had finally set off the bombs. Mars shot the lock and flung the door open, hoping that the sound of the explosions would cover the noise. "Fast!" Mars shouted as they entered the living room. They stormed in and rushed to the next door. The sound of the alarm was deafening, and they could only hope the enemies thought they were triggered by the bombs. Trench kicked the door open. Bogus sat paralyzed on his large circular bed. He wore only shorts. 2 half-naked women, a blonde and a brunette, jumped out of the bed, one in each direction, both too gorgeous to be anywhere near him. "Run away from here," Wren shouted at them. Spike pointed the rifle at Bogus. "Not you." A drop of sweat ran down his rotund face as he raised his hands in the air. Spike and Trench pulled the trigger almost simultaneously. He quivered as the bullets crossed his flesh, splattering his blood on the wall. He was dead before he could draw any last words. "Let's get out of here," Mars shouted. "Tell Abby we will go through the back door." They rushed out of the room, leaving Bogus' body behind. Wren started the flamethrower, burning the room behind him and erasing any possible evidence, if that even mattered at that point. Gunshots startled them on the way out of the chamber. They quickly took cover behind the furniture as the guards approached. The 2 women who tried to escape collapsed in the middle of the crossfire. The heat was unbearable. "Well, this is getting kind of exciting. More like a TV show." My next story is a short one, and it's entitled Sable, overlined with amber. Visiting Crete in the dead of winter may birth a friendship, by David Pahor. And he published this one in Illumination Curated. Keftu. I first met it on the Museum Globe of Earth. I have been asked by our war minister on Europa to show the newly designated military attaché from the Narman around on humankind's birth planet. I guess the bureaucrats from the Interstellar Office had this cunning idea about how two kindred soldiers would bond, kiss and tell, and all of that nonsense, and how I would gain profound insight into the mysterious race of the bird-headed aliens, one of the fabulous five in the forest. They were wrong, of course, because you cannot con an educated member of a civilization hundreds of millennia older than ours. They were also somehow correct, enacting the luck of the blind helmsman. Possibly it chose to interact more with me than it planned. I will never know whether it had to do anything with me or just because we trudged around January's melancholy hills of the rainy season in central Crete. We had been traversing the remains of the Kefala Hill for hours and found only broken stone and some pottery shards. During the exchange centuries before, Crete was targeted with a couple of tactical nukes, and somewhere near the Minoan Palace there must have been an air defense battery station that was taken out with extreme prejudice, together with half of the mound's flank. I am bewildered why the alien wanted to see the vestiges of the Konoso archaeological site, but I was there to please it, not to reason why. Looking at the darkening skies and clutching a piece of earthenware in its finger tendrils, it suddenly turns to me and trills. The AI module adjoining my medulla oblongata translates flawlessly. Be so good as to take me to the nearest place where the villas of the rich stood above the north coast. The verse took a full 11 seconds to determine a suitable spot. 15 minutes later, my flyer landed in a gap in the Calabrian evergreens and unbridled brush, where we disembarked upon a thick blanket of wet, dark pine needles, almost obscuring a decayed asphalt parking lot. Its surface is cracked into dips and ridges by the tree's roots, reproducing the island's undulating topography in miniature. We force our entry through the scrub to another clearing at the cliff's edge, with the rolling whitetops far below us and the bay beneath the gray heavens. A forlorn shell of a stone and concrete house stands guard over a large rectangular pit whose floor is obscured by green rainwater rich with algae and floating dead matter. Startling me, it cries out in excitement, "It's a swimming pool!" As it inspects the fabricated cavity with interest, I make my way to an eroded corner where a small creature with 2 lines of lemon spots down its auburn back looks at me with bulging eyes, sable overlined with amber, then continues unsuccessfully to scale the slimy wall. I remove a paper tissue from my backpack, kneel, and pick the being up around its midriff from the stagnant liquid, releasing it beside me on the remains of sand-finished tiling. It slithers away with a frantic waddling motion, with "No, thank you, sir, and please visit us again" above the windy and wintry Aegean farewell. As I straighten, tossing the tissue into the water, the Norman stands stock still, its eyes with almond-shaped arrays of mini pupils studying me intently. The uncomfortable silence lasts 67 seconds. "Why did you save it?" "It seemed to be the right thing to do. Nothing deeper than that," I reply, somewhat defensively. Did I break a cultural norm of theirs? Did he expect me to offer it as a snack? She ponders some more, and suddenly displays what I would later learn to be a smile. "Come, let us leave this place of excessive memories and beeline for the visitors' cafeteria on the mainland. Did you know I picked up the fascination for abandoned swimming pools from one of your writing legends from way back, a gentleman by the name of J.G. Ballard?" As we rise in the anti-grav ministry-issue sedan, and it points itself towards the Peloponnese, I cannot shake the feeling that I have passed a test meticulously conducted by a supreme predator. Perhaps it had not been the pale-limbed Carpatho salamander who had been in mortal danger. "Spheroid, you've tagged along quite readily," I say to the bird-headed alien in the silver body suit, "but what's with the cold feet now?" Our group stands at the foot of a weathered wall of what seems to be immemorial microscarred steel, towering more than a kilometer above us. The image from orbit was of an oblate spheroid, 2/3 buried in the earth, canted at 30 degrees from the vertical as if the giant disc thrower had hurled the object straight down at the desert plain bordering the inhospitable sea with obsidian foam. It has an upper limb extended, resting on the pitted dull metal with its 4-finger tendrils displayed. It warbles what is instantaneously interpreted by our tingling brainstems. I had to touch it to become certain. Using your term, it is ancient as sin. Its technology surpasses our own even more than the latter shadows yours. We must leave immediately, never to return, and have the planet quarantined. I grimaced at the Norman military charge d'affaires. You understand that isn't going to happen. We have our own orders to explore the artifact, superstition be damned. I ordered the men to refasten their helmets and set their exosuit lamps to the utmost luminosity, and I can swear I hear a whimper-like sound from it. There was a reason my brood clan was fully opposed to your species gaining candidate status in the forest leagues, it says. Ignoring it, I wait for my team to release the swarm of droids and clamber into the cavernous opening before us. I then turn back to face it, extending my hand. You should have exterminated us while you still had the chance, old friend. I know, she whispers. We entered the wound in the vessel's belly together, changing the course of history. My next story is a short one. It's called Space Field Fire. A field trip to the waste disposal planetoid gets cut short by L.R. Conti, published in Future Tales and Second Chances. Someone set fire to the garbage planetoid. It started as a white spark in the twilight hour. Kaylee stood at the bus stop among the evacuees, a student clutching a purple bag, wearing her favorite spacesuit and a frown, mad that her space-filled trash tour went sour. The bag held everything for the night and a souvenir found before they fled, a piece of purple plastic that caught her eye. We'll have hot chocolate and watch falling stars, her mother says. So they lie on blankets, counting streaking colors as the smoldering thing throbs. Aluminum burns blue. They sip sweet milk through their helmet straws and wait for their defogging eye shields to compensate for the steam. Kaylee says garbage is a rainbow scattered through the sky. Her purple bag sits on the floor, forgotten. Her souvenir tucked away. A purple plastic lighter that sparked white before the twilight shower. Now I'm going to take a little break before I start reading a poem here. I've got 2 short poems to finish out the day. And I would like to give you a couple of minutes, and I'll come right back. I want to invite everyone to listen to Crann and beatha Stories and Poetry every Monday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Reese Across America Radio. Search out www.reaseacrossamerica.org/radio by typing in the word Reese in these mobile apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, or TuneIn. Or find them on a web browser and join us to listen to the show and support WAA Radio, Whiskey Alpha Alpha Radio for any veterans listening. Reese Across America is a nonprofit radio station that supports veterans programs and organizations that help needy veterans. By joining us at Reese Across America, you are helping to support veterans in need across the U.S. So search us out and enjoy the shows they have to offer and thank a veteran while you're at it. Now I want to take another minute or so to ask for a donation of any amount to help me keep this podcast going and to advertise my website. I've set up a donation tab on the Crann and beatha Stories and Poetry webpage at rss.com and a donation page on my website at www.crannandbeatha.com using PayPal for your security. This way there is no credit card info saved anywhere and you can use any currency you wish from around the world. If you like this podcast, please share it with everyone you know in your social circles, as the writers I showcase in this podcast deserve all the exposure they can get. I created this podcast for them because I love to read their work, and I believe it should be shared with the world. Now I want to explain how to find my website. Since the show is audio only, just take the website name from the podcast logo shown here and search for it. Visitors finding the website for the first time will reach the welcome page to learn a little bit about what's inside. There you'll see a homepage link at the bottom of the page. Click on it if you wish to enter my world. And on the menu bar at the top, there are links at all the pages in the website. Feel free to look around all you want. If you should happen to want to buy one of my books, all the better. Thank you for your patronage and support. Now back to the show. All right, welcome back. I'm going to read a couple poems here for you, and they're about life. First one actually is entitled The Language of Life, a poem by Sally Prague. Her name is spelled P-R-A-G, so I hope I pronounced that right. Published in Imogene's Notebook. How does the world speak to you? Does it, like a poet, speak in metaphors, or like a songstress, speak in melody? Does it, like a scientist, speak in formulas, or like a mathematician, speak in equations? Or perhaps, like the energetic flow of life herself, speak to you through the wind in the trees, through your reflection on the river's surface, or through the raindrop upon a petal glistening in the sunshine? Our eyes can see one thing, yet hear another. Vision and sound merge and diverge, and leave one imprint on the brain, but another in the heart. Yet when we stop, breathe, and listen, life's calls will always be there, loud and clear, though we'll each hear them in our own way. Today my eyes and ears see as one. The outlines of the trees follow the curves of the soundtrack of the world in spring. But when I close my eyes and listen, offering nothing but silence in which to hear and receive what my eyes cannot, voices from afar are calling me. I hear sorrow, the cries of women being persecuted in Iran, the screams of children in tent cities in Gaza, and the weeping hearts of families of hostages trapped somewhere unknown and unseen by the world. I hear the stolen words of the dead across the war-torn nations, and the anger of the threatening and the fear of the threatened, wishing desperately for that deafening noise to be silenced. So too do I hear joy, the songs of the birds now returned from the south, the squeals of children playing outdoors in the sun, and the motors of mowers prettying gardens everywhere. But in amongst the sadness and joy there's another voice, and if I listen carefully, I can hear its call, the call of a voice from beyond. It's one that whispers on the breeze, when the breeze is but a murmur, the one that sings through the soil as it steeps softly in the sunshine. It's one that pierces the hearts of those who hear it and rests in the soul for as long as she will listen. It's the voice of life herself, the energy that bubbles in the laughter of children, the melody that sings from every which way, and the vibration that is felt through every nerve ending. It is a voice that silences all others through her very existence and brings peace, freedom, and bliss, even when no peace, freedom, or bliss can be seen by the eyes alone. For in this voice of life reigns the sound of love, the very essence which will never die, even as our bodies do. This voice speaks a language we all understand, whether in metaphor or melody, formulas or equations, if only we can learn how to be silent and listen. My last poem is from it's a Native American poem, and I'm going to try and pronounce this because it's in the Seneca language. And this comes from Dark Rumblings. And let me try this. Wajigaoje. I hope I said that right. I think it's close. It's This Too Shall Pass by Susan Brierley. Now, she wants me to mention her upcoming writers. It's called a writers retreat at Muddy Yum. And I'm going to post a link to this in the newsletter. Now, she published this in Contemplate. Awakened by the dawn and the birdsong, rays of light through the opening shelter, eyes opened. Old muscles, old bones, still stiff after rest, in need of liquid of lubrication for which no oil can remedy. Cloud shapes form flowers, fronds, murmurations of birds, whales and rats, dogs and diggedaroos, with that vibrating rumble past lightning-rod arrows to the heart, jolting deadened souls in an auto pulse to life, now remembering to breathe deeply the gathering drops of storm. And water finds water, merging with the torrent, momentous event over in a forever second, remembering that she came from the sky and fell to the earth, and we are the same as a passing rain cloud. And she writes a note here. The title of this poem is in the language of the Seneca, one of the 6 tribal members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Its English translation is, "A cloud is passing over." And I wrote this in honor of the gifts given to me by my Seneca brother, Jay Printa. So that's all I have for everyone this week. I hope you enjoyed the stories and poems, and you'll be back again next week for more next Friday. Sláinte. Garamahagat. Thank you for listening to the show today. I hope you enjoyed the variety of stories and poems again this week. Maybe one of them might touch your heart a little. Disclosure for everyone. In order to read the complete stories and poems, you'll need to sign up for a subscription to Medium. If I see a link by the author on one of the stories to allow everyone to read it, I will let you know in the newsletters. Please return again next week for another episode of Crann, beatha, Stories and Poetry. As a Sean K., I want to continue to delight you with a story or a poem that may bring you a smile or make you think a little bit after we part for the day. As I say goodbye this week, I wish to leave you with this Irish blessing as you go about your day. Long life and fair health to you. Salfada a gusprech, sláinte chucad. Slán go foil. Goodbye for now.